started with something small. It always does. I came home later than usual that night. A last-minute meeting ran long, then traffic backed up on the I-94, and by the time I pulled into our complex, the sun had already dipped behind the buildings. Streetlights flickered on overhead, and the air had that early fall chill that somehow makes the world feel quieter. I remember thinking how still everything felt. Calm. Familiar. But the moment I walked through our front door, something felt off. It was subtle. Not anything loud or obvious. Nothing was out of place exactly. The lights were on low, same as always. The shoes by the door were lined up in that perfectly symmetrical way Julie liked. But there was a smell, sharp, sour, chemical, and completely unnatural. Lemon. Not like fresh-cut lemon or citrus soap. It was too strong, too sterile, like someone had taken industrial cleaner and scrubbed every surface in a panic. It clung to the air, laced with a faint undertone of something else. Something sweet and floral and very much not part of our apartment. I set my keys down slowly and followed the scent. It got stronger toward the bedroom. I hesitated in the doorway. The bed was made, which was already unusual. Julie always left it unmade during the week, said it felt more inviting that way. The sheets were tight, like someone had just remade it. The window was cracked open just an inch. The curtains shifted with a faint breeze. And then there it was again, that perfume. Light and unfamiliar, hanging in the air like a whisper. I stepped in, moving carefully, not wanting to admit to myself why I was being so cautious. Why my chest already felt tight. That's when I saw it. On the nightstand next to Julie's stack of unread paperbacks and her jade plant, there was something that didn't belong. A leather bracelet. Dark brown, masculine, wide enough for a man's wrist, with a small metal clasp. I picked it up. It was still warm. That detail stuck with me more than anything. The warmth. Like it had just been taken off. Like someone had been here. Recently. Very recently. My fingers curled around it instinctively. Then I placed it down exactly as I found it. I didn't want to leave fingerprints, which is ridiculous. I wasn't a detective. I was a husband. A confused, tired husband who had no business feeling like a stranger in his own home. Trying to keep my thoughts from spiraling, I turned toward the laundry hamper. I don't know why I looked. Maybe I was looking for confirmation. Maybe I already knew. Right there, on top of the pile, was a navy blue men's t-shirt. It was soft, almost worn-looking, but the collar was fresh, and the inside tag had been cut out, like it had been done on purpose to avoid itching. Or maybe to hide a brand. It definitely wasn't mine. I hadn't worn navy in years, and even if I had, this shirt was a size too small and the wrong kind of fabric. It was recently worn, crumpled, warm from body heat, the faint scent of cologne clinging to it. Not my cologne. I stood frozen in place, holding it like it might explain itself. Like if I waited long enough, the shirt would offer some innocent excuse. Like I wouldn't be standing there in our bedroom holding evidence of another man's presence. That's when my phone buzzed. A text. From Julie. Hey babe. I'm at my sister's. Gonna stay overnight. Her kid's sick and she needs help. Hope that's okay, red heart. I stared at the screen, rereading it. Something about the message felt too casual, too intentional, like she had drafted it with care, like she was making sure to sound normal. The emoji felt like **LL. I typed back, slowly, no problem. Hope the little guy feels better. Let me know if you need anything. I waited for the usual dots. Nothing. Just the delivered receipt. I turned off the screen and stood there in the stillness of our bedroom. The scent of lemon cleaner burning my nose, perfume lingering in the background like a ghost. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water I didn't drink. My eyes kept drifting toward the hallway. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then movement. Out the back window, across the small courtyard, I caught something. Light flicking on in Julie's bedroom window, which was strange, because she was supposed to be at her sister's place on the other side of town. The window stayed lit for a while. The curtain shifted. Then I saw it. A shadow. Not hers. For a second I thought maybe it was a trick of the light, but then it moved again. It was taller, broader, definitely not her silhouette. My chest tightened, and I stepped out onto the balcony to get a better angle. There it was again, the second figure. Quick, like someone ducking behind the curtain. I stood there, holding the railing so tight my knuckles went white. I stayed out there for almost 15 minutes, watching. Nothing else moved. Eventually, the light turned off. I went back inside without saying a word. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed with headphones in, trying to drown out the racing thoughts. I played the text over in my head again and again. I kept thinking about the bracelet, the shirt, the shadow. I didn't want to believe it. You never do at first. You rationalize. Maybe her sister came over here instead? Maybe the bracelet was a gift from a friend? Maybe the shirt belonged to a cousin? But the lies you try to tell yourself start to fall apart as soon as you try to say them out loud. In the morning, Julie came home. She was dressed casually, hair pulled back, makeup minimal like she'd been up all night taking care of a sick toddler. She even brought coffee, my usual order. Her keys jangled as she came in like it was any other day. "Hey babe," she said, smiling too brightly. "Sorry I didn't text again. It got late. We ended up doing this crazy deep clean of her place because she had this allergy flare-up. You would not believe the dust under her couch." She talked fast, kept moving, told stories that didn't land, details that didn't matter. She said her sister had tried a new lemon cleaning product and it gave them both headaches. She laughed, light and breezy, then sipped her latte. I nodded and smiled back, said I was glad she helped, that I hoped her nephew was feeling better. She asked how work was. I told her it was fine. She mentioned maybe going to yoga later. I said sure. She kept talking. I kept listening. But deep down I already knew. Something had changed. The mind does strange things when it's trying to protect itself. For days after that night, I kept telling myself I'd imagined things. That what I saw or thought I saw from the window was a fluke. That the bracelet belonged to a friend. That the shirt in the laundry had a perfectly normal explanation. But the truth has a way of leaking through, slow and relentless like a drip from a cracked ceiling. It started with little flashes. Moments I had overlooked at the time but now came flooding back with new weight. I began replaying them in my head. Not just once, but over and over like a detective going over surveillance footage, noticing things I had missed the first dozen times. There was that Tuesday 2 months ago when Julie said she had a work dinner and came home with her hair curled, makeup touched up, and no leftovers. I remembered asking how it went. She told me it was fine, boring, mostly networking. I had believed her. Why wouldn't I? We'd built our relationship on honesty, or so I thought. Now, in hindsight, the smile she wore that night felt too sustained, like she had just come back from something that filled her up, not drained her like work dinners usually did. Then there was the Thursday her location sharing stopped working on Find My. I didn't even notice at first. It wasn't something I checked often. But one day it was just gone. I asked about it casually. "Huh, weird," she said, frowning down at her phone. "Must be a bug. I'll fix it." She never did, and I never asked again. Back then, I didn't think I needed to keep tabs on my wife. More cracks began to show. One evening, I found a crumpled receipt on the passenger seat of her car. 2 large cappuccinos, a pastry, and a cafe name I didn't recognize. Not anywhere near her office or her usual stops. I held onto it without knowing why. Another time, I opened the bathroom drawer and found a men's cologne bottle new, unopened. Julie was allergic to strong scents. She'd made that clear early on when I used to wear aftershave, and I'd stopped for her. Now she claimed she bought it as a gag gift for a coworker. Said it was part of a joke at the office. But there was no box, no receipt, no punchline. Stayed in the drawer for a week, then vanished. There were other things, too. A necklace I never saw her wear tucked in the back of her jewelry case. No tag, no box, nothing familiar. I asked where it came from. "Oh," she said after a pause, "that's just something I ordered online. Took forever to arrive. No order confirmation, no packaging. Just a necklace that looked more expensive than something she'd buy for herself." One night, she came home later than usual, claiming she'd stopped for groceries. She walked in with a half-full tote bag, bananas, almond milk, and a random packet of protein bars we never ate. Her hair was styled, her eyeliner still crisp, and her cheeks had that flushed glow that doesn't come from walking the frozen foods aisle. She gave me a kiss on the cheek, too casual, too light. I don't think she noticed me watching her as she set the bag down. I don't think she saw me clock the missing receipt from the store. She just smiled and said, "Traffic was crazy." Some nights she went quiet. Not angry, just detached. She would lie in bed scrolling through her phone, the screen tilted away. When I got up to brush my teeth, she'd lock it. If I came in from the hallway unexpectedly, she'd flip it face down like it was second nature. Once I asked if everything was okay. She smiled, too quickly, and said she was just tired. That phrase became her shield. Just tired. Just helping. Just one drink. Just a late night. I began noticing the Uber charges in our shared credit log. Julie never used rideshares unless she was going out with friends, and even then it was rare. But these were always late. After 9 p.m. After 10. Drop-offs near hotel districts. Pickup points nowhere near her supposed locations. There was one charge to a motel out by the highway. One of those low, nondescript ones with numbered doors and hourly rates. It showed up on a Saturday night. The same night she said she was crashing with her sister after a wine night. I wanted to believe there was another explanation. I told myself it could have been a mistake, a misclick, an error in the logs. I even went so far as to search for other people with her name in the app, wondering if it had been charged to our account by accident. But the next morning, I noticed she came home wearing different earrings. Not the ones she left with. She also didn't smell like wine or her usual lavender shampoo. There was something new, muskier, heavier. I asked how her night went. She said her sister cried about her ex for hours, and they ended up watching bad reality shows on the couch. She added just enough detail to seem sincere. I nodded. I even smiled. But I never asked how her sister's kid was, the one who was supposedly sick the last time she stayed over. I knew better than to break the illusion too soon. Then came the AirTag alert. I was walking to my car after work when my phone buzzed. Unknown AirTag detected near you. This item has been moving with you for a while. It showed a rough trail of my movements for the past hour. I stared at the notification, my stomach flipping. At first, I didn't think anything of it. But then I checked again. It had followed me from my house. Not from work. Not from the gym. From my driveway. I went through every pocket of my bag. Checked under the mats in my car. Nothing. I didn't find the tag. Later that night, I told Julie about it. She froze for a second. "That's so creepy," she said. "What do you think it was?" I shrugged. "No idea." Then she laughed and said, "Maybe someone at the grocery store tossed it in your bag by accident." The next day, my Find My app no longer showed any tracking notifications. The history was gone. It was like it had never happened. I started taking **TS, saving receipts, quietly cataloging everything I saw and felt and suspected. I made copies of the Uber logs. I backed up the notification about the AirTag. I started checking our bank statement daily. I took a photo of the leather bracelet and zoomed in to look for a logo. I found one, faint, worn down but traceable. A small brand that sells on Etsy. I searched their shop. Each bracelet is handmade, custom sizes. No way it ended up in our bedroom by accident. I didn't confront her. Not yet. There was still a part of me that hoped I was wrong. That there was a reasonable explanation just waiting to be uncovered. I wanted to believe that I was just overthinking, that stress or jealousy or imagination was twisting reality. But that part of me was shrinking. Every day, every hour she was gone late, every smile that didn't reach her eyes, every moment she turned her phone face down, that hope was fading, and something colder was taking its place. Resolve. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to scream or accuse or beg. I was going to find out. Quietly, clearly, completely. I would wait until the facts told the story she wouldn't. Until the evidence could speak louder than the lies. The line between suspicion and truth is razor thin. Once you cross it, there's no way back. You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unknow what you've learned. The world rearranges itself around the new reality, and suddenly every word, every memory, every small kindness you once took for granted turns into evidence. Or a lie. That's where I found myself the night I decided to follow Julie. I told her I was meeting an old coworker for drinks. She smiled, said, "Have fun," and kissed me like nothing in the world was wrong. Her lips were cool, her expression calm. She didn't ask who I was meeting, didn't ask where. She didn't even look up when I picked up my keys. Struck me, that detachment. Maybe she really didn't care. Or maybe she assumed I was as blind as before. Julie had told me she'd be going to her sister's again. The same story as before. She added a few new details, though, like people do when they're refining a script. Apparently, her sister was finally repainting the guest room and needed help choosing colors. She made it sound ordinary, domestic, harmless, but I already knew she wasn't going there. I had been planning for this for days, quietly, methodically. It started when I looked up her sister's neighborhood online and realized it wasn't that far from a stretch of roadside motels near the industrial district. Motels that didn't take names, only cash. I also remembered that the last time Julie claimed to be staying there, the Uber charge had placed her less than half a mile from one of them. That was enough to light the fuse. Before she left that night, I slipped a small AirTag, the same kind that had mysteriously appeared near me weeks earlier, into the lining of her gym bag. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd introduced the tool after all. I was just repurposing it. When her car pulled out of the driveway around 7:30, I waited 10 minutes before leaving. I didn't want to follow too closely. The night was clear, the streets quiet. I kept a few cars between us as we headed toward the east side of town. It didn't take long for the pattern to reveal itself. She didn't turn toward her sister's subdivision. Instead, she drove past it, past the grocery store, the small park, the turnoff she always took. My pulse climbed, but my hands stayed steady on the wheel. I followed her through 2 intersections, then down a long stretch of road flanked by auto shops and fast food places, the kind of area where no one pays much attention to who comes and goes. Her car signal blinked. She turned into a side street lined with single-story motels. Their neon signs hummed in the dark. Vacancy, daily rates, Wi-Fi included. It looked like 100 other forgotten corners of the city. She slowed in front of one, the Sandstone Inn. Beige walls, flickering outdoor lights, a cracked vending machine by the office door. She pulled into a spot near the far end, where the cameras probably didn't reach. I parked a block away. K** led my headlights, and waited. Through the windshield, I watched her step out of the car. She was wearing a light denim jacket, black leggings, and sneakers. Her hair was tied up, but she kept fixing it nervously as she walked. She carried nothing, no overnight bag, no purse, no sign she was visiting family. She looked at her phone once, then crossed the lot toward a door near the corner. Number 8. She didn't knock. The door opened before she reached it. A man's silhouette filled the frame. Broad shoulders, dark hair, casual clothes. They stood face to face for a second, no hesitation, no surprise. Then she stepped inside. The door shut. The light flicked on behind the curtains. I didn't breathe for a long time. I wanted to tell myself I hadn't really seen it, that maybe she was helping someone move, dropping something off, picking something up. But the longer I sat there, the more the truth solidified. The room light stayed on. The curtains shifted. 2 shadows moved across the fabric, sometimes apart, sometimes closer. Then the light dimmed, and the shapes stilled. That was it. The confirmation. I stayed there for nearly an hour, engine off, every minute ticking louder than the last. My brain kept looping between disbelief and numb clarity. There was no more guessing, no more excuses. The story had ended. I was just sitting through the credits. Eventually, I drove away. Not fast, not angrily, just calmly. Like leaving the scene of an accident after making sure everyone was already gone. Back home, the apartment felt smaller, quieter. I stood in the hallway and stared at her shoes lined up neatly by the door, the same pair she wore every morning. I remember thinking how absurd it was that something so ordinary could coexist with something so devastating. The world doesn't pause for heartbreak. It just keeps going. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even drink. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, opened a new folder, and named it Records. Then I began collecting. First, I downloaded the location data from her phone using our shared account. The timestamps matched her drive perfectly. Next, I saved **TS of the motel's online map, the address, the nearby intersections. I took notes: time of departure, time of arrival, the number on the door, how long she stayed inside. I even sketched the layout of the parking lot on a notepad. It wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. The truth written down becomes solid. You can hold it. You can defend yourself with it. Around midnight, I pulled up the motel's business page. To my surprise, one of the top reviews mentioned helpful staff and reliable security cameras. That gave me an idea. The next day, on my lunch break, I drove back there. I parked across the street and watched until the clerk behind the counter stepped outside to smoke. I walked up with a friendly smile and said I'd lost something. A watch, somewhere in the parking lot last night. Asked if he could check the footage. He looked skeptical until I handed him a $50 bill. His shrug said everything I needed to know about the kind of place this was. We went inside, and he queued up the feed from the side lot. The footage was grainy but clear enough. There she was, Julie parking, getting out, walking to door 8. The man waiting. The way they hugged. The way she glanced around before stepping inside. I asked if I could take a photo of the screen for reference. He didn't care. That image became the centerpiece of my folder. That evening, when Julie texted me about being stuck at her sister's again, I responded with a simple thumbs-up emoji. Then I turned off notifications and let the silence hang. I didn't confront her when she came home the next morning. I didn't accuse. She came in smelling faintly of that same perfume. Hair damp from a quick shower, voice soft and casual as if nothing had happened. "Hey, I missed you," she said, hugging me loosely. I nodded. Me too. And that was the moment something shifted permanently inside me. I realized she was living in a story she had written for herself, and I was no longer a character in it. Just a prop, a background figure who provided context. That realization brought an odd kind of peace. I didn't need to yell or demand answers. I didn't need her confessions. I already had everything that mattered, the truth and proof of it. The betrayal wasn't abstract anymore. It was time-stamped, geotagged, and captured in digital evidence. Cold, irrefutable, undeniable. It was over. The rest would be logistics. When people imagine betrayal, they picture chaos. Shouting, slammed doors, broken glass. But the real thing doesn't sound like that. The real thing is quiet. It hums under the surface like a low, steady frequency, vibrating through everything you do. You start to move differently, speak differently, breathe differently, because part of you knows that you've stepped out of the life you were living, and now you're just rehearsing your final scene in it. That was me in the days after I confirmed the truth. Julie didn't notice, or maybe she did and mistook my silence for forgiveness. She went on with her routines as if nothing had shifted. Morning smoothies, quick calls from work, light laughter that sounded too smooth, too deliberate. I didn't confront her. I didn't have to. I'd already made my decision. The difference between knowing and doing is smaller than most people think. One night, I stood in our hallway, staring at the framed photo of us on our honeymoon. Two people who genuinely believed they were building something permanent. I didn't feel anger anymore, just detachment. Like I was studying two strangers frozen in a memory that no longer belonged to me. That night, after she fell asleep, I started packing. Not everything, just the essentials. Clothes, documents, the external hard drive with my work files, a few books I couldn't replace. I moved slowly, careful not to make noise. I remember the soft hiss of the zipper on my duffel bag and the faint glow of her phone screen lighting up the nightstand beside her. Face down, as always. Every small detail felt cinematic, like I was watching someone else's life play out from a distance. I left the bracelet on her nightstand where I'd found it, a kind of punctuation mark. Before dawn, I wrote her a note. Short. No drama. No accusations. Just a quiet, final line between us. I know. I wish you'd told me first. Take care of yourself. I didn't sign it. There was no need. Then I set my keys on the counter beside her empty coffee mug, took one last look around the apartment, and walked out. The hallway smelled like detergent. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. I remember the hum of the fluorescent lights, the sound of my own pulse, the dull ache in my chest that wasn't quite sadness and wasn't quite relief. Maybe both. By the time the city woke up, I was gone. I'd rented a small furnished studio across town. Month-to-month lease, minimal questions. It wasn't much, but it was clean and quiet. The first morning there, I stood by the window watching sunlight creep across the bare floor, and for the first time in weeks, my breathing felt even. Not easy, but even. There's something strangely liberating about the first hours after leaving. It's like stepping into cold air after being inside a smoke-filled room. Your lungs don't know what to do at first. They just gasp. I spent that day taking care of logistics, changed every password, unlinked shared accounts, contacted my bank and moved my half of the savings, closed the joint streaming subscriptions, forwarded my mail. Methodical, detached, almost surgical. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just needed the distance to be total, clean edges, no loose ends. When you've been deceived that thoroughly, the smallest connection can feel like poison in your system. You cut everything to survive. I went back once, briefly, to pick up the last of my things. She wasn't home. The apartment looked eerily staged, like someone preparing for an inspection. Dishes stacked neatly, couch cushions aligned, a lemon scent hanging in the air again. On the dining table sat the note I'd left her, unfolded. Next to it, a single word scribbled beneath my handwriting. Please. That was all. Not a message, not an apology. Just please. I stood there for a long time, staring at that word. I didn't take the note back. I didn't leave another one. I just turned off the lights and locked the door behind me. Back at the studio, I started documenting everything. It wasn't about revenge. It was about self-preservation. Emails, receipts, location data, timestamps, all of it compiled into one secure folder. If she tried to twist the story later, I'd have the record. The truth, preserved in cold, silent detail. When I wasn't sorting through evidence, I sat at the small kitchen table and stared at the city lights outside. I thought about how strange it felt to start over at 34. To have no one waiting at home, no shared meals, no casual check-ins or small inside jokes. The kind of emptiness that isn't loud but steady, like static in the background of your thoughts. But that emptiness was honest. And after what I'd lived through, honesty was worth more than comfort. A few days later, Julie texted me. Where are you? Can we talk? I didn't reply. Then another came a few hours later. Please, just 5 minutes. I'll explain everything. The messages came in waves. First confusion, then guilt, then desperation. I messed up. It wasn't what it looked like. We can fix this if you just come home. You're being cold. Don't throw away everything we had. I didn't respond to any of them. Every time my phone buzzed, I added the message to a folder titled Contact Log, part habit, part defense. Silence became its own kind of answer. Eventually, her tone shifted. The pleading turned to frustration. You're just running away. You think you're perfect? You never listened to me. If you'd cared more, maybe I wouldn't have looked elsewhere. That one stopped me for a moment. It was so transparent, so fragile in its deflection, that all I felt was pity. The kind that comes after anger fades, when you finally see someone for who they are instead of who you tried to believe they were. That night, I lay on the couch in the half-dark and realized something strange. I wasn't thinking about what she'd done. I was thinking about who I'd become in response to it, cautious, observant, patient. For the first time in months, I wasn't reacting to her. I was existing for myself. The next morning, I booked an appointment with a lawyer. The consultation was quick. I explained the situation plainly, without embellishment. The lawyer asked if I wanted to pursue fault grounds or a simple no-contest filing. I said I wanted it clean, fast, and quiet. No accusations. No drama. Just separation. He nodded. Most people come in here angry, he said. You seem calm. I've already lived through the storm, I told him. I'm just here for the cleanup. When I left his office, the sky was gray, but the air smelled like rain. That strange, metallic scent that always comes before the downpour. I stood on the sidewalk for a long time, just breathing it in. There's a certain clarity that comes when you finally stop waiting for an explanation. You realize the truth was never complicated. You just didn't want it to be simple. There's a strange shift that happens when betrayal turns from feeling into paperwork. One minute you're standing in your old life, watching it crumble from the inside, and the next you're at a desk, signing documents with your name printed in bold capital letters beside words like petitioner and respondent. It feels impersonal, feels cold, but it also feels like control. Control had become my anchor. After leaving, the days blurred together in a kind of muted efficiency. I wasn't sleeping much, but I wasn't falling apart either. I kept things moving, like if I stopped for too long, the weight of everything might finally catch up. The lawyer I hired was quick and direct. She didn't ask for the whole story, and I didn't offer one. I gave her the folder, location logs, time-stamped rideshare receipts, the motel security footage still frame, the copy of our bank statement with the unexplained hotel transaction circled. She glanced through it like a surgeon prepping for routine surgery. This will make things easier, she said, flipping to a new form. Easier. Clear-cut. You have evidence. There's no ambiguity. If she tries to contest anything, we'll respond. But if we present this, odds are she'll fold. That was what I wanted. Not revenge, just simplicity. I didn't want a trial. I didn't want accusations flung across courtroom benches. I just wanted out. No more shared accounts. No more waiting for confessions that would never come. I wasn't trying to destroy anything. I just wanted peace. We filed under irreconcilable differences, but attached documentation in case things went sideways. It was all procedural, emotionless. That helped, somehow. Julie didn't respond at first. The papers were served a week after I filed. I chose to do it through a third-party courier, not out of cruelty, but because I didn't trust myself to be in the room with her. I knew if I saw her face, I'd hesitate. Maybe not in my decision, but in the clarity of it. I didn't want to open any door that could be used to drag me back inside. When she finally reached out, it was in writing, as advised. Text messages, then emails. She asked if we could meet before signing anything. She called it a conversation, but I knew it was another version of a plea, or a stall. Either way, I let her words sit in my inbox unread. She followed up. I don't want lawyers between us. Can we just talk like people? But we weren't just people anymore. We were two parties negotiating the formal end of a life. I forwarded her message to my lawyer without a word. Within the next week, she agreed to the terms. We divided the property evenly, but I made one thing clear. I didn't want the apartment. I didn't want the bed where I'd laid awake wondering what lie she was building in the next room. I didn't want the couch where we'd watched movies on nights she'd already planned her next excuse. I didn't want the kitchen where I made dinner while she texted someone else under the table. She could have all of it. Furniture, plates, the TV, the framed prints we picked out at the flea market, hers. I told my lawyer, it's not worth fighting over. The only thing I insisted on was the finances. I pulled out hard and clean. Half the savings. My retirement fund untouched. My name removed from all joint debts. She asked for time. Not to contest anything, just to process. I'm not ready, she wrote. This feels so sudden. Sudden. That word landed heavier than I expected. I didn't reply. My lawyer did. Per client instruction. All further communications will be in writing and reviewed. She stalled twice. Missed a document signing the first week. Claimed she needed clarification on a few terms. But we had it all in black and white, and every delay was documented. That was the trick I learned. If you keep everything in writing, the emotional fog clears. There's no manipulation in email threads. Just facts, timestamps, and signatures. The court date was set 3 weeks out. In the meantime, I made lists. I updated addresses, canceled streaming services, changed my emergency contact at work. I bought a new phone plan, got new passwords, and notified our landlord of my official move out. When they asked for a forwarding address, I gave them my new one and nothing else. The woman at the leasing office, kind, middle-aged, probably divorced herself, paused after handing me the change of residency form. "You okay?" she asked. I gave her a tight smile. "Getting there." She nodded. Sometimes, clean breaks are the only way to heal. I don't know if she knew the details. Maybe she didn't need to. Maybe she'd seen this story enough times to know the signs. In the final week before the court hearing, Julie emailed again. It was longer this time. More raw. No excuses, just unraveling. "I know I broke something I can't fix, but I keep hoping you'll remember how we used to be. I think about it every day. I don't sleep. I keep hoping this is just a bad stretch, that we'll look back at this and find our way through. But maybe you've already decided. I guess I just need to know if there's any part of you that's still willing to fight." I read it twice. Then I closed the browser and went back to packing the last of my boxes. The hearing itself was fast. Routine. No audience, no drama. Just a clerk calling our names and a judge flipping through forms like he was reviewing tax returns. Julie sat on the opposite side of the room. She looked tired. Not sick, not broken, just tired in a way I recognized. The kind of tired that lives in people who finally understand they've run out of stories to tell. When the judge asked if both parties agreed to the terms, we both nodded. Julie didn't say a word. Neither did I. The gavel didn't bang. The judge just said, "You're legally divorced as of today. You'll receive documentation in the mail." And that was it. Our marriage dissolved in less than 15 minutes. A decade reduced to paper and silence. Outside the courthouse, she stood there like she was waiting for something. A word, a sign, a final moment of shared memory. But I walked past her without stopping. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because the story had ended. There was nothing left to rewrite. No alternate version that made what happened unhappen. She called out once. Just my name. I didn't look back. I took the long way home, past a few of the places we used to go. The bakery where she loved the cinnamon rolls, the bookstore with the creaky second floor, the corner bar where she danced once on a quiet Tuesday night just for me. Each place had its ghost, but none of them hurt the way I thought they would. They were just old chapters. That night I slept for 10 full hours. No buzzing phone. No watching shadows shift through the blinds. No waiting for the sound of keys in the door. Just sleep. Honest, uninterrupted, solitary sleep. It was the first time in months I hadn't dreamed about her. Julie's messages kept coming, soft at first, then sharp. Please turn to guilt, guilt into apologies. She blamed loneliness, called it a mistake. Said I'd been too cold. But I had the receipts. Motel charges, fake business dinners. A timeline that didn't lie. There were no more questions. Just quiet distance. No more replies. No more hope. The truth sat between us like a locked door. I had already walked away. The end was quiet. The court papers were signed, and our lives split with no fireworks. I ran into Julie once at the store. She smiled, unsure. I nodded and kept walking. That was our final chapter. No yelling, no tears, just silence. Trust doesn't return. And love without trust is memory, not a future. The best peace I found was in that stillness. Nothing left to fix, nothing left to explain. Just gone.